regular board meeting is 03. Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Gentry, Mr. Guerin,
Here.
Mr. Troy,
Here.
Mr. Quagliano,
Here.
Mrs. Melendi, here, Mrs. Maiorino, here, Mr. Craddy.
Here.
Forum. Next item is we'll go into closed session. I'll make a motion to go into closed session at 6:04 for the items enumerated in the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Monday, can we have roll call?
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry? Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes. We'll be in closed session till 7.
This is none of our, we're like No questions.
All right, we're gonna keep going. Okay, we've exited closed session. Back in open session, roll call, please.
Mr. Garin,
Here.
Mrs. Maiorino. Here. Mr. Quagliano,
Here.
Mr. Craddy,
Here.
Mr. Troy,
Here.
Mr. Gentry,
Here.
Mrs. Melendi.
Here.
We all stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yeah.
We have a student who's gonna do that.
We do?
She's going to-
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, that's great. It was a last minute add-in, and we are
Well,
excited she's gonna help
Well,
us.
before we do that, can we go ahead and introduce?
Everyone ready?
Yep. Okay.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We can just stay up here and we can transition into our student recognition.
Good afternoon. So for those of you that don't,
Push the green button. Yep.
all right.
All right.
So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Kelly Radloff, and I am a teacher in Light. I have had the pleasure of teaching Jess for the last 2 years. Jess is an amazing student. She goes above and beyond. She is extremely hardworking and dedicated. She gives 110% in everything that she's done. She is working at McDonald's. She's been doing that for how long now?
2 years.
2 years. She takes PACE independently to and from McDonald's. She is an all-star in the classroom, always volunteering and stuff. And most recently, Jess is here because she won the 100-meter dash at Special Olympics. So we wanted to congratulate her on winning and earning the gold medal. You want to show them your medal? Can you see it?
Great job.
Sure.
Congratulations. Wonderful job.
Can we get a quick photo of you? Is that okay?
Fine.
Up here, can we get a quick?
Can we get a picture?
Thank you. Do you want to come on up?
Sure.
Thanks, the right?
Yep.
And take a couple. Awesome. Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. Hang on.
Do you want me to take one on your phone? Oh,
Stay in.
Yeah, come on.
you got, oh, you bought two today. Perfect.
You go.
Maybe that would be useful during. Yeah, that's stuff is cool. Right here while you're sitting. Yeah.
Okay. That's my favorite. You're welcome. Oh, that's good.
Okay, item 6 is, public comment. We have, 2. We'll start with, Carrie Cross.
Give me a second. Am I on? Nope. I'm the sole person who comes and speaks each and every month about the special education program. I want to point out that many parents are not comfortable speaking at these board meetings or at their IEP meetings. Also, many don't attend the board meetings because getting sitters or someone trustworthy and skilled to watch our kids is hard or damn near impossible. Just a side note to point out though, we try to make our lives as normal as we can, but our lives are much different than our typical friends. In this district, all of the parents I know have said they are not satisfied with the program at some level. The complaints run from the high turnover rates of staff, to the lack of communication about everything, to the condescending tones of those who manage our children's education, all the way to the failure to listen to the parents' concerns, with the huge dissatisfaction being the failure to involve the kids themselves to the level that it is used as a selling point in this district. We do have some good staff, and it's the only thing that gets us through. But I will keep standing up here until it changes, and you actually open up your ears and listen. Really listen to what I am saying, and stop just letting me talk for my given 3 minutes, and then forget everything I said as soon as I walk away. I'm not sure if anyone monitors the local community social media pages, but if not, then you should figure that out. I know, there will always be positive and negative talk, and you will get slammed on social media. Believe me, after the last 2+ years, we've been attacked on social media too. But what you're missing is that there are many who will openly say their truth about their experiences, and you are all completely ignoring it. Recently, there was a post on a community page about the special ed program, and multiple responses were to get used to the poor communication and, in quotes, to save yourself many hours of frustration and heartache and get a lawyer and advocate now, end quote. Do you even care? What are you doing to fix this? I come here each and every month, and last month I got to sit here and listen to how innovative and advanced our district is. We're spending a ton of money on electric buses when the real needs in this district keep being ignored. In reality, our kids are not the priority for this administration, and you've proven it over and over again with this last choice of choosing shiny new optics versus the real needs, and it is total proof. Are electric buses really more important than a new light program location, or more important than teacher retention that would only bring stability to our district and benefit our children? Because that is the message that is being received loud and clear. My last statement is a public service reminder to all the new families and to the unaware parents. You're all about to get your kids Chromebooks, which still do not have a warning label on them, and your kids can access very inappropriate content despite the blocks. Kids are savvy and probably more technologically advanced than most of us in this room, and no matter how open and trustworthy your kid is, temptation is hard to resist when you're young. Please talk to your kids often and check their Chromebook history daily. Don't just assume school-issued devices are as safe as you'd expect. Be vigilant in this because trying to unsee something is impossible. Too many parents wait and then do damage control instead of being proactive, and that is a huge mistake. I know because I was that parent, and my son would be the first to tell you that your child has probably already seen things that you don't know about, and he'd urge you to protect your child because the school blocks don't always work. I pray for all of our children entering the school year and that they have a fun, happy, and educational year that all kids should have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Jill Cataldo.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jill Cataldo, and I'm speaking on behalf of the District 158 Parent Union tonight. At our July meeting, our parents brought up 3 areas of concern that I would like to put before you tonight. First, the district's commitment to the electric buses. The intentions of moving to a zero-emission bus system is commendable. However, the primary focus of our district should be on educating all of our students. We feel that this is where the focus of our tax dollars really should be placed. Originally, these electric buses seemed like a deal that was too good to be true. We had the impression these buses were going to be free. But now we are left with questions that we ask the board to consider, especially before the vote tonight on the $1 million solar panels and charging stations. For the first 4 buses, we received a grant from the state. But for the next 8 buses, are the same grants available, or will the district be paying full price, reduced price for these buses? Level 3 chargers cost less than $10,000 installed. Why does our mixed level 2, level 3 charging for 12 buses cost over $400,000? The solar panels for these charging stations are going to cost $870,000, which again, you're voting on tonight. Has anyone figured out what is the real savings over just purchasing electricity off the grid? Has anyone run those numbers to see what the break-even point is? The Verity contract shows a savings chart which should be examined to see if the district agrees with these savings and to what components these savings are derived from. It does seem that the district is going to spend about $5 million of taxpayer money, including some amount, again, of state and federal grants. However, that is also technically taxpayer money. We really should pause to ensure that this is the best use of the district's capital. Additionally, some of our parents have raised the concern of the longevity of these buses' batteries. Perhaps you saw the national news story this week about a family in Florida that purchased a 2014 electric Ford Focus for their 17-year-old daughter. The used car she bought for $11,000. 6 months later, battery reached the end of its life. They took it to Ford. Ford says, oh, a new battery is $14,000, exceeds the value of the car. Family decides, okay, we'll bite the bullet with her car, we'll get it. And then Ford told them, oh, guess what? We actually don't make that battery anymore. The car's too old. 8 years old. Does anyone expect a car or any vehicle to last just 8 years on the road? And if that is the expected life of a small sedan battery, has anyone looked into the estimated lifespan of these bus batteries? Please vote tonight to defer the solar panel expansion and charging stations until a deeper understanding of the financials is known to our community and to this board. Switching topics, we have a number of parents of elementary schoolers and new parents to our group with children entering kindergarten soon. They are all extremely concerned about the Illinois sex ed standards that are coming into the system. Last summer, our group met with Dr. Rowe and some of you about this, and we were assured this district would not teach these standards, which do include gender transition options for K through 5. We would like some confirmation that's still the case. And finally, with McHenry County's COVID numbers on the rise and some schools around the country moving toward masking for first day of school in August, many of our parents are extremely concerned D158 might make a similar move. Our parents have vowed to fight any future D158 decisions to mask children as thoroughly as we did during the DeVore lawsuit earlier this year. We also have so much data now on how detrimental masking is to development, learning, and social skills, especially for the young students in the district. Healthcare decisions do need to remain in the hands of the parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. In 7 on the agenda, revision and adoption of the agenda. Couple things. The one thing I know is the item 20.5.1, the Verity agreement is going to be moved from the voting agenda to just a presentation, and we'll move that to Mr. Renkezik's section at 16.1, called 16.2 section. So that item will be moved. Reports. Dr. Rowe, you have a retort, correct? Ms. Lombard, do you have? Zemke, do you have a report this evening? Yes. Very good. Very good. Mr. Crandall, do you have a report? Mr. Castillo is not here, correct? You'll have updates, correct? Dr. Budzinski, do you have anything? You don't have, all right? You don't have any updates, it's all action. Okay. Verity, do you have anything? specific? No. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the following revisions. We'll remove item 9, remove item 11, remove item 12, remove item 14, remove item 15. We'll move item 20.5.1 to item 16.2. And we'll remove item 19.1. For a second?
Hang on, 20.5.2 stays put. Only 20.5.1 is moving.
Help me out. I only-
Because Doug, is that amendment stay in place? There's the amendment to the contract.
Okay, so there's
There's
two
a
items.
service contract, the remote service contract, that one remains in place as an action item. It's the,
No, there's two items
Yeah, you,
under
so
Verity.
you need to look at the agenda, because I've made a motion to move away from action 20.5.1, which is.
it should be 5.2.
5.2 needs to be moved?
Yes.
All right, so 5.1 stays. So I'm going to amend my motion. I'll make a motion to move item number 9, item number 11, item number 12, item number 14, item number 15. We'll move 20.5.2 to the 16.2. Right, and we'll remove item 19.1. Second,
I'll second that.
Troy, can we roll call on that?
Mr. Verity,
Yes.
Mr. Aaron,
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi,
Yes.
Mr. Gentry,
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano,
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino,
Yes.
Mr. Troy.
Yes.
Yes. So, maybe superintendent.
Right, actually, I was prepared to say, no, I do not have a report this evening, but I'll take the opportunity to, actually address a couple of the points that were made. Ms. Cataldo pointed out about the concern about the sexual education standards for K through 5. Nothing has changed in terms of the district's stance in that regard. The law states that if you teach sexual education, you must adhere to the national standards. We teach sex education 6 through 12. And again, our teachers create thoughtful lessons that are catered to not only hit the standards, but also the district standard and respect for students. And parents do have the ability to opt out of those lessons at their discretion. Communication is just the requirement there. And then the second question about will masking return. The district approved a decision-making model back in February. That decision-making model is still in place. We intend to adhere to that. Therefore, meaning there will not be a new plan presented to the school board as to how the school year will operate. We're returning to school as we left it, full steam ahead. All students in the building, unless there is a doctor-indicated rationale as to why they cannot attend. And although the county may be in high status, our decision-making model is a holistic approach that looks at all aspects of things, and that decision is 100% local. So, I won't say that 100% it will never happen, but it is. We are not in a place where that is a concern. Our primary reason our hospitals are not being overrun because of the continued evolution of the virus, that it is not, and the high levels of vaccination, it's not having the same effect as it did early on. So, it's not an immediate concern or one that I foresee.
Okay, item 10. 10, excuse me. 17.
Yeah, good evening. I recently began my first few weeks in the school district, and I just wanted to take this opportunity and say thank you. I've been hosting some preliminary meetings with our teams, learning a lot about the district, the culture, and some structures to support. I had the opportunity with our curriculum and instruction team and our student services team last week to attend a conference in Minneapolis on AVID, which supports college and career readiness. So excited to learn more about that with our team. and just continue the onboarding process, to learn more about Company 158, and appreciate being here.
Great to have you here. Thank you. On item 13, services reports, Mr. Altmeyer.
Thank you. I have a few reports to cover. First one is just monthly fiscal update. The only thing I would add is, it's year end, and the fiscal team is preparing for the year end audit, which is scheduled to begin at the end of July, beginning of August. So we are looking forward to getting that done and finalizing the district's financials. The other 2 points I'll note within the memo, under operational efficiency and operational efficiency from a fiscal perspective, we look at crossing every T and dotting every I, so whether it's to create an efficiency, or whether that's to save dollars for the district, or that's to recover and or find additional revenue dollars for the district. We've got a few items that fall under the latter there. The P card rebates, about a year ago, we started doing business with Capital One to gain a little more rebate on the credit card payouts to our partners, to our vendors. And this past year, we generated $75,325 in rebates and received a few checks along the way, totaling that amount. So wanted to share that with the board. And then we continue to file all necessary paperwork with the Federal Emergency Management Association, FEMA. And just a few weeks ago, we received an additional $238,000 from FEMA, primarily related to the transactions and things that we were paying for in fiscal year 21, beginning of fiscal year 22. So good news on that front as well.
What were they reimbursing for?
They actually increased the reimbursement on a lot of different things. So previously, they were paying 25 to 50% on things such as masks and cleaning supplies and sanitation supplies and e-misting, and then they increased that percentage. And we had to go back and file some additional paperwork and work with folks over at FEMA, and that resulted in the additional $238,000 coming our way. So good news for the district. So that will also be part of when we talk about the fiscal year 22 financials. We are tracking, can I jump into that one right now?
Yeah.
We are tracking favorable to year end, and obviously in front of you, you have the May 2022 financial executive summary. With this being the May month end, and we're currently working on the audit, within probably at the August cow, we should certainly be able to provide the board a much better forecast as where we think we're going to end up, because at this point in time, we are still drafting a lot of different audit entries and accrual entries and finalizing the month end of June to be prepared for the audit, so we'll have a much better feel as to how much that surplus will be. But if you do look at the dashboard, there are several things, and we'll talk about this when we talk about the year-end fiscal year 23 budget. But if you look at the dashboard, we do have some line items that are very favorable. As we've been seeing all along throughout the year, we have CPPRT, which is the Corporate Personal Property Replacement Tax. Well, we're sitting at 303%. To date, we've received approximately $1.3 million from the state, while only budgeting $421,000, and that's primarily due to the strong economy and the dollars collected at the state level remitted back to the district and all organizations that are receiving the personal property replacement tax. So that's an $857,000 favorable swing. We have a favorable swing in impact and transition fees because residential housing, as we all know, was booming before interest rates recently took a little higher. We also have a big uptick in national school lunch. Right? Typically, on an annual basis, we budget $700,000 or $800,000 for national school lunch. This past year, we budgeted $2.5 million, and we really kind of took a stab at that number because this is the number that we received for feeding all of our students, right, providing those free meals, breakfast and lunch. And we budgeted $2.5 million, but it's currently sitting for May month end at $3.3 million. We still might have another check or two coming our way that might make that $837,000 of favorability just a little more. So we are definitely tracking with budget. We will end up in a favorable position, but we'll have a better idea of how favorable once we get closer to finalizing and preparing for the audit. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have on the overall financials. I will add one more point. I always talk about health insurance. We had another big claim month at $879,000 for May. If we were to forecast June, we haven't finalized June yet. But even if that came in as $1 million claim month, we're still looking at favorability for health insurance, which is a good thing, about $400,000 to $450,000 on a $10.6 million budget line item. So I wanted to share that with the board as well.
I mean, that line item, I mean, the gap is closing, though. It's,
Yes.
it's, I mean, you can see we're incurring claims and the settlement costs. It's been over $1 million each month.
Yes.
So,
RX cost is on the rise, large payments in the pipeline.
Teachers aren't in school, they're getting their checkups, stuff like that, so it's probably gonna be higher, so it's still, this will probably be as close a year as I can recall as far as the actual budget. So, but, we're okay. On the National School Lunch, it's obviously, based on the volume of meals, so we're obviously incurring associated costs with those meals.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. But there is, you know, there is a little margin there,
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Questions for Mr. Allmeyer on his report? Further questions, we would be on, already on item 16, building and grounds. So, Doug, I'll leave it up to you. If you want to go into your updates or if you want to start with, Verity, it's up to you.
Well, I'd be fine, I'm happy with starting with Verity. They're kind enough to bring our whole team here, so,
Yeah, that's fine.
please, let's go ahead. I know the team has done a lot of work, in the background right now, getting ready for the next phase of this project. And, we did get, some letter of proposal of amending things, and, we just want a little more time, to study it, the fine print, but the presentation to understand how it works. Michelle's got a fine presentation that I'm hoping you can share with the board right now. She's got a PowerPoint presentation, that she want to share if you want to come on up and go for it. Explain how this works and how, what it's gonna, save the district over the life of the project.
Working?
Just below the green button.
Here we go. Good evening. My name is Michelle James with Verity. It's nice to see everybody for a second board meeting in a row here. I think I would like to start maybe with just introducing a few of our team members that we have here this evening. So first, we've got Arash Habib Saru, who is our solar and EV engineer working on the team with us. Also, we've got Bob Smith. He is the sales manager for the Midwest region. And then we also have Josh Potabom, who is going to be the on-site project manager for our EV project. And lastly, we've got our Wes Walker, who is our CEO.
Yeah, nice to meet everyone. Thank you for having us. I just want to take 1 minute, if I could, to introduce myself. Just say 3 quick things. First, thank you for your continued trust in Verity as you move into this next project. Potentially, it's a very exciting project for the district and for Verity as well. So thank you for that. Second, I live here in Algonquin, and I just wanted to acknowledge for a second how much I appreciate what District 158 is doing. You continue to be a leader beyond just excellent education, but in this space of energy efficiency, renewable energy, clean energy, decarbonization, and now electrification. It is fantastic. And I just want to acknowledge that and say thank you as a community member and let you know that it is not unnoticed, whether it's here in Algonquin or Huntley or in Kane and McHenry County. You are leaders that many of our communities around here look to and point to see what you're doing. So for that, I just want to say thank you. And third, as the CEO of Verity, I just wanted to just point out for a second that this is an important project for our company. And as so close to home, I just want to assure you that it has the full resources and capability that I have at my fingertips to make sure it's a perfect project. I have full faith and confidence in the team. They're brilliant people, engineers and constructors. There'll be no issues, but if there are, I just want to share that with you that I'll make myself available and all the resources of the company. Thank you again for letting us be here today.
Well, thank you, Wes. Thanks again for having us here tonight. As Wes mentioned, we're very excited to get going on this first phase of the project. So our hope tonight is really just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of what we started with the EV infrastructure and charging solution, and then talk to you about an extension of that, which would be another solution for reducing long-term costs. Verity has been working with the district for almost 12 years now. We know that that's one of the primary goals, is to develop solutions that can bring, to lower your energy and operational expenses long-term. And so we feel like this next option here is one that would be good to consider this evening. So again, for last month, we approved through the board the electrical infrastructure and the charging solution. It would include up to 12 EV buses. We know those are on order, and we've also ordered the charging stations since last month. Those are on schedule to be here third quarter. And I know we're working through comment on some additional questions in terms of transformers, and then we'll be looking to start ordering equipment for the infrastructure as well. Again, that would include up to 12 buses. The first phase being a total of 5 charging ports, so 2 level 2 chargers and 1 level 3 fast charger. The additional capacity allows for, again, up to 13 charging ports. So with that, we're looking at a solar solution, a ground mount solution that would then offset the electrical for the 12 buses. So again, this is just a little bit more information, details on the initial phase that would provide you a total of 5 charging ports. Here, again, this was part of our phase 1 approach with the electrical infrastructure. This shows the site layout of the EV infrastructure, the components that are going to need to be ordered as well. And again, just to note here that we are working with ComEd to make sure that the existing transformer is sized appropriately. So with that, what we looked at was designing a system that would offset up to 12 buses with solar array. As shown here, this would actually, the location we're looking at would sit in front of the existing ground mount location that is there today, would be fenced in. The size that we've selected is 194 kW, and then we would be looking at a first-year production of 290,000 kWh. When we're looking at the 12 buses, we're actually looking at a total annual solar revenue that would be about $20,624. Again, the electrical bus offset would be about 105%. So with that, again, is the site layout, which is where we would put the infrastructure necessary for the solar array. We would install an investment-grade PV revenue grade meter, which is where we would measure and verify on an annual basis for 3 years the production, and then we would do a weather adjustment. And again, that would be guaranteed for the first 3 years. The district reserves the right to continue measurement and verification if they would like beyond those 3 years, as long as there is operation and maintenance being done on the panels. So this just provides some additional detail on what that installation would require, what it would look like. Again, we've got the chain link fence surrounding the solar array as well. So one of the reasons that this is a unique opportunity to think about solar is that Illinois right now is offering a variety of incentives that we can factor into the cash flow that really makes this an appealing option. So there are solar renewable energy certificates available for this. Once we receive an application that's approved through ComEd on the interconnection, then we would submit an SREC application as well to receive these incentives. Again, it's based on the size and the block. And with that, we would be eligible to receive $178,000 roughly in an SREC incentive amount. So we put,
Michelle,
yes,
and
please.
the SRECs received, is it like quarterly over 5 years?
So it's over a 5-year period. There is an initial collateral payment that the district would have to make, and that is shown on the cash flow of about, I think it's about $29,000. And then in year 15, you do receive the majority of that back.
but the bulk of that is done in the first 5 years. Equal payments. So again, this is going to be a summary of the cash flow. The next slide will detail out the cash flow, but I wanted to first kind of give you the summary of that. So the cash flow factors in, again, the initial cost of the solar array, 194 kW, and that would be $872,909. We also have incorporated a unique procurement method that allows the district to take advantage of some additional federal tax incentives that are out there. Essentially, it's about 15%, because in the first 6 years, we would structure the agreement so that we would be able to take advantage of that full tax incentive and share that back with the district. So that's the $130,936 that you see on line 1. Also factored into the cash flow, you'll see an annual savings amount for the solar of $20,624. That would be escalated 1%, which is very conservative. We're probably looking at more like 2.5% when you look at probably the last 10 years right now. So we're being very conservative with our cash flow. The incentive amounts, again, that is the total of the SREC incentive, and also ComEd provides a smart inverter rebate, which is another $48,000 in incentives that you'll see located on the detailed cash flow. And then another unique opportunity that the
Quick question on
Sure.
those incentives, are those like, I mean, I just noticed the incentives are more than the savings combined. Is that something that would likely live on and persist, or could it be at risk going away?
The incentives, I mean, absolutely. So essentially with the first program that started in 2019 with SREX, it was first come, first serve. And so they had a rush of applications. They went pretty quickly that year. Now they've increased those amounts, and then it's still a rolling application. Once they receive enough applications and those funds are depleted, there's no guarantee that they're going to continue.
But it's a one-time upfront?
It's a one-time upfront, yeah.
I kind of read it as an annuity at first, so that's why I was asking.
Sure. And then the other unique opportunity is the depreciation. Because the district would be owning the infrastructure for the EV and the solar, you can account for a credit of 70%. I'm sorry, actually, we're looking at 65% roughly depreciation, straight line depreciation over 20 years. So that has been included in the cash flow as well for both the solar and the EV infrastructure and charging. So as you can see, the project cost of the contract that was already approved last month for the chargers is $411,398. The annual savings associated with the gas savings as well as the maintenance savings on the bus is the $31,224. The district received a grant for $44,000 as well for the charging station, so that's been factored into the overall cash flow. And then again, the depreciation that I mentioned earlier. So when you look at three years I've highlighted here. So again, year 9 is really when the system starts paying back, and you see a positive cash flow of $62,315. We also highlighted year 20. That's typically the contract that we would put in place for guaranteed energy savings contracts. I wanted to highlight that. So at year 20, you've got a positive cash flow back to the district of over $1 million. And then year 30, we picked that date because the panels have a 30-year warranty. And so that's roughly 1.5 million positive cash flow as well. So probably hard to see up here, but we do have copies if people need them. But again, we've got 1% escalation included on the utility costs, which we believe to be very conservative. You can kind of see here exactly where the SREC incentives are located in that first 5 years, and then the collateral payment is given back to the district in year 15. And then also we've got the solar services has been included, and the insurance has been factored in. For the first 6 years of the contract, that is something that is provided through our procurement method, and then after that, the district has the option of procuring those services on their own or with Verity. So those are some of the highlights. Does anybody have any questions specifically on the cash flow?
Can you clarify again how the collateral payment is defined and works?
So initially, when you submit your application for the SREX to get approved, you would
would actually submit a portion of the overall SRECs. And Arash probably can answer exactly what that percentage is. But it's roughly $30,000. And then, in year 15, which is essentially, a combination of meeting your production requirements over time, you would then receive back, I think it's about 80% of that collateral payment.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep. And then acronym check again, SREC.
Yeah.
Solar Renewable Energy Certificates.
Of course.
I apologize, I use too many acronyms. Any other questions on the cash flow?
Again, just obvious to you, this is just for that infrastructure. This has nothing to do with the buses specific. This is the infrastructure, charging station. The difference here is, for us, is, there's solar, we don't own anything. This one, we're gonna, is ours.
Correct.
Making sure people don't think buses is a completely separate piece of analysis. This is just infrastructure to charge.
So the next slide here really just indicates the timing. Again, we've ordered the charging stations. We're moving towards finalizing, ordering equipment for the EV portion. I know that the board is really just reviewing our presentation tonight, but I think if approved for the solar, the next step for us would be to submit a ComEd interconnection study application. That could take up to 60 days. And prior to that, we wouldn't really be looking at ordering any of the equipment because we've got to make sure that there's not any changes associated with the approval of that package. So just something I wanted to point out. Following that, we would submit our application for the SRECs as well. And then once that would be approved and the application submitted for the SRECs, we could look to start ordering equipment. So if approved, again, the EV structure is dependent on some of the ComEd information in terms of when that installation starts. But we are looking at working with the district on a temporary location. And then again, depending on if the solar is approved and the application for the interconnection, we would be looking at possibly a May installation. So does anybody have any questions? Please.
But I want to see if anybody else has any questions.
I guess on a high level, it's basically your, kind of the question at hand, the next step that we're talking about is that kind of round up to 900,000 now to get it paid back over, I recall, 10 years. And then, $1 million over the next ensuing 20, and is that a worthwhile investment or not? And then maybe just at a high level, what is that source of savings to make up for that $900,000 investment? I'm assuming it's like a rate differential in that first 10 years, but I wanted to clarify that.
So what is the makeup of the first 9 years?
The savings that make up,
Sure.
that pay back the 900,000.
Correct, yeah. So it would be the solar revenue received from the panels, from the offset. It would be the solar renewable energy certificates and the smart inverter rebate from ComEd, the depreciation as well. It also incorporates the EV bus savings, which is gas savings and maintenance savings. And so that's really the combination of all the savings over the first.
Well, then on that point, the gas savings on the EV buses themselves, is that really tagged to this investment, or is it tagged to the bus investment to begin with? Meaning, if we didn't do the 900,000, 1872, you'd still have the gas versus electric savings on the buses.
Correct, you would,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's not part of the,
It's not contingent, no.
but is
No.
it part of those savings?
It is included in the cash flow, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the overall cash flow that we're looking at is a combination of the EV solution combined with the solar offset.
Okay. Because I think right now, it feels like the more relevant is to isolate that, the solar, I'll just call it the dollar term, but the 872, I think, is the next incremental step. And, you know, I think from a board perspective, we would look at that incrementally relative to just that 872 and the payback that's contingent on the 872. Because we've already taken that first step.
Correct. Yep, I mean, that's certainly something that we can, put another cash flow scenario together to show you what that looks like.
Okay.
So the question I had is, obviously, this is a 12, 13 charging station. Okay, so we're committed to 4. What if, you know, future, the buses, we have to pay full freight, and then full freight's too much, and we decide we would go down that road. So this is all predicated on ultimately we'll get to that threshold, is that right? Using that solar power. So what happens if we don't?
As I have another report update finally for you after comment pickup for a couple months, but just having the solar, we do gain value.
Right.
On a standalone basis. And that, well, it's represented in here for information, but, it would still provide value to us as savings over the long term. It's a longer term.
Right. Okay. And I'm kind of sort of aware of it. I just want to make sure it's publicly stated that this doesn't fail if we never get beyond 4 buses.
And it's been proven in the past in other states, the longer we wait, the less incentive we'll get, the less value we'll get from having that solar.
Right.
You know, so, it's trying to do it.
The issue is, I mean, not the issue, but it's kind of the timing's right to take advantage, optimize these larger incentives that probably won't exist at this level out in the future. Is that a fair statement?
Correct. We also looked at the overall offset of this campus. The current solar installation was sized for, I think it was roughly 75% offset. So even with the addition of the solar for the 12 buses, it only offsets it by additional 9%. So you're well under the overall 100% when you would get nicked for the net metering.
I just have a quick question. What happens, you talked about the incentive, what happens if we don't, in subsequent years, have those incentives?
So the incentives that we factored in are one-time incentives. I will say that there's, continuously grants coming out that we could look at for, again, some of the additional buses or infrastructure. There's some that I believe just hit the streets this month that we could look at as well. But in terms of the solar, these are one-time incentives.
And are these part of the federal infrastructure package incentives, or is that something different?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the SRECs are through Illinois, as well as the Smart Inverter Rebate, that's through ComEd. And then that is a federal tax incentive that, again, that is going to be decreasing every year as well. So this year, it's roughly 15%. We're already hearing that if you move into next year, that's going down to 12%.
Okay.
Right. But the SRECs that you get committed for now, they're guaranteed out for those 5 years.
Correct.
It's what you're getting on this initial project. You don't have to worry about it. It's a commitment to get that cash flow in SRECs over the next 5 years. Those aren't at risk.
Yeah, that's a good point. So
That was my.
Yeah, I apologize.
Yeah,
I should have clarified that. So yeah, on the cash flow, everything that was stated on there, once we get the approval application back from the SREC trade, then yes, those are all guaranteed through those 15 years.
Okay, thank you.
No, so I've been part of the interview team, when this began, so a lot of my questions or a lot of the dialogue I'm familiar with, and from my perspective, I'm actually good with this. But this is more for people's benefit, the board's benefit, because they haven't been in the meetings that I've been in. So from my perspective, I think this project does make a lot of sense. One of the things that I hung my hat on, I guess, if you will, is that when we did the solar project originally, when we dialogued with the public, we said, this is how much we're going to be saving for the district. And one of the things that I struggled with initially is if we tap into the existing solar array, we're kind of going back on what we told the board or what we told the public as to how much savings we're going to be doing. So I know that there's some spend in this up front, but again, the timing for this is really, this is a sweet spot to be in right now because it's not going to get better than this. And I really don't want to go back to the public and say, you know what, we did promise you this when the initial solar array came out. However, we're going to change the plan X number of years later. I'd like to stay true to that commitment that we made to the public when we initially put the solar array project in motion and went online with it. So to me, this makes a lot of sense to put in this type of array to offset the power that's going to be required for these buses.
I guess I would kind of question you at one point a little bit in that you're generating the electricity you're generating through the solar panels today, that you already have that, you're making your spread on that. And if you went subsequently down the road, went and bought 10 more buses and powered them with that electricity, but still that those savings are still there and true to that original commitment, regardless of how you use the electricity. You have to justify how you ultimately use that electricity, but the spread on that electricity is, still there, and that benefit is still there, whether or not. I guess it's there either way, because it's already utilizing more.
Yeah, I guess the way that it was presented and is what I wanted to stay true to. That's what I didn't want to back off of.
Okay.
Because we didn't go to the public and say, you know what, there's a possibility we may switch to electric buses and we may adjust how we utilize this or to what avenue we go down with this. We said that this was going to be used to offset the power for our buildings, and that's what I kind of want to stay true to.
If I may, these buses, the electrical draw, the power draw of these buses is going to exceed the building. And if we want to preserve our price position with what we pay for power, this is how we can keep that price structure down. Right.
Can you clarify that? Because
the amount of power that the electric buses will draw is going to exceed the amount of power that this building service draws.
Okay.
And so when we draw more power and we don't position ourselves like we are with the solar, where we're producing it during the day and in fact selling some of it back and then buying some of it at night, we're going to be paying more. Because these buses are going to plug in from 9 to 1 during peak hours and draw more power. But if we're producing the power, we're getting it at a lower price than.
So is it a question of you created capacity with the original project, you created capacity level at a certain spread that we're making our profit on? You go over that capacity, is it fair to say you're kind of paying market, right?
Oh, yeah. You're going to pay more. And in fact, one of the biggest penalties on the electric bill today for everyone is your demand charges. And when we plug these buses in, the demand's going to go up and our prices are going to go
But
up.
that clarifies what I was concerned with, is that there is a real, they are related, meaning we got our capacity, but now you go above that capacity, you still have your savings, but now you're paying full price for that the new electricity, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
I have nothing further.
They're down there. You get, either one of you two have anything to add?
I just, you have anything to add?
Yeah, thank you for the time this evening.
Yeah, thank you for coming and helping us take a deeper dive and understanding this a little. And the next big step, as Michelle said, is for us to apply for an interconnect agreement with ComEd. We had a teleconference today. Several members of the Verity team were on the call with us. ComEd was very open and had a lot of players in their organization that are all part of the whole process. It's kind of complicated when you have the EV buses and the solar involve both. And I think we made a lot of progress in an understanding between us on how to make this work. There are some timing issues here. I know I think we're in a good place to get this done next summer sometime. But the biggest thing that ComEd keeps reminding us is there are supply chain issues and transformers that are horrendous right now. But they are so forward-thinking and trying to support their network of customers even beyond us. They recognize that they need these transformers for stock anyway. So they've already placed an order some time ago based on a dialogue they've had with my office early on and learning we were going to get some EV buses to upsize this. And now that we totally understand the picture better from the Verity team, they even talked about ordering even a bigger transformer and not really even being sure if they need it for us yet, but they'll have it for stock. So they're making their effort to try to help us get this thing on the road too right now. So it's going to take a concentrated effort of constant dialogue between the Verity engineers and them, but it did go very well today. I'll be anxious to see that interconnect application filed, and then we'll know for sure how this part plays into the project.
More fun here. I see your logic now on the cash flow piece, because it's like in order to secure the right rate for electricity, the infrastructure is almost required for that. Otherwise, you're at the mercy of whatever that overcapacity rate is on electric, which would eat into your savings. So it's almost like it is hard to separate the two. So I get
Buying more into it.
clarifying, yeah, I'm understanding the logic of that a little clearer. I think it would just beg a couple other questions. Ultimately, is more to Tony's point, is where does this road go, and how big is our operation in this regard? And just considering that, and to me, it's like that cash flow view of the world is kind of the answer for me.
Right.
And is 10 years quick enough if it's and what's the probability, if there's any probability of not getting it, and just kind of weighing those pros and cons ultimately.
In terms of the savings and the incentives?
Yeah.
Right. Well, we've got a guarantee in place on the production. And so we feel very confident, that we're going to meet that.
The guarantee on that what?
The production of the
Okay.
panels.
Okay.
So that's in place, just like our first performance contract that we did with the district. If you remember, we had a 3-year performance bond in place, and we exceeded that every year, so we're very conservative and, we have a lot of confidence in that. I think in all of the installations that we've done in Illinois with the SREC application, as long as the funds are there, we've always received them. Same thing with the ComEd Smart Inverter rebate.
Okay.
So we feel pretty confident, again, if we submit in the next couple months here, that, as long as the SRECs are available, that we'll meet the requirements necessary to get those approved.
Right.
Again, I think with the calculations we did on the gas savings and the maintenance savings, we were very conservative on those as well. So I think if anything, and then again, the escalation, we're seeing for the last 10 years, I think, we've got some studies that show 2.5% to 3%. And we factored in 1% on the cash flow. So if anything, I think we're looking at a very conservative look. I think you're going to see more savings than what we predicted.
And then there was mention of I think it was a 30-year warranty.
Right, so the panels have a 30-year, the modules have a 30-year warranty.
And that's like a no-cost warranty to us if something were to go wrong?
It's a parts warranty. However, if we're doing the operation and maintenance savings, then, if there's issues, we'll handle the parts as well. I'm sorry, the labor as well.
Okay. Gotcha.
Right. And then, of course, the opportunity to take the depreciation, I think, is something that is not necessarily going to be available long-term, correct?
Well, it should be available long-term, because
Okay.
electrification, the point I was going to make was electrification is not going away, right? That is something that I think we all, you can pretty much hang your hat on. Talk to ComEd, talk to any of our energy partners. That's one thing that's not going away. So whether we have 4 buses or 6 buses or 7 buses, we're going to have an electric fleet. We will have minivans. We will have O&M vehicles. We will have other electric vehicles, which is why we're building the infrastructure we're building. You know, we had a public comment earlier about $411,000 for chargers and infrastructure, but the fact of the matter is that $411,000 is primarily for the infrastructure.
Correct.
Because we need the infrastructure, well, for those 3 chargers, but we'd be really short-sighted if we only built enough chargers for these 4 buses and we let electrification kind of slip away. I mean, I think we have a unique opportunity, and the unique opportunity is the federal tax incentive. It's the SREC credit, right? It's the other incentive, as well as the opportunity to have a transportation reimbursement, because that's what this is. This is a solar array specifically for our transportation department. So, you know, I think, you know, the numbers speak for themselves, and we've sat down and we've crunched the numbers. I mean, we didn't let Verity crank these numbers out on their own, that's for sure. But they've been doing this long enough, and we've been doing this long enough, right? We've become, I think you know, I think the community knows, whether it's propane, whether it's solar, whether it's energy savings in general, well, we have become experts. Mr. Rankoncic has become the largest expert. He's the latest expert on electrification on a call with ComEd weekly? Bi-weekly. I think the only one in the state that's doing that. So we do feel this is a really good opportunity for the district. We also feel it's a great opportunity for the community and the environment we live in, you know, continuing the path that we're going on. And at the end of the day, it's a moneymaker. It's saving the community and the district money.
Okay. Please, on that.
So our present vision is to not take too long to bring you back some language for an amendment to the contract.
Okay.
That should, so we're prepared for the return on the interconnect application review from ComEd. Right. And what our goal is, that will be, that agreement that we will have, we'll have some language that will say will be, that the move forward will be contingent upon ComEd's approval without any additional charge to the district that's going to shift our thinking on not making it viable any longer. Because that is always a one possibility in that stage of the project. The ComEd looks at it and says, well, we need to beef up our infrastructure to handle the capacity of what you're doing, sending us or asking us to deliver to you. So they analyze that. That's what the interconnect application does. And like they did with Forefront, they may come back and say, well, there's a no cost. They may come back and say that there might just be a few bucks for a transformer change or something, or you know, most likely they will not come back and say they'll need to change much more infrastructure, because they told me on a call, one of these biweekly calls a few months ago, that when they sized the power feed from Square Barn Road going up through our campus, it was the biggest size wire they have available. We have plenty of capacity. That's what ComEd said. And as you may or may not know, is when this campus was annexed, our neighbor was plotting with the village at the time. He has a subdivision layout for this whole parcel, east of us and west of us and south of us, where Pally is Lakewood Road, going right in front of our property here on the other side of the power lines and connecting down in to Huntley Dundee Road by Galligan Road. And so there was a vision that things were going to grow and fill in here real quick. So we've got utility stubs going out that way, and ComEd was apparently right on board, being prepared for that next big maneuver. So we're probably not going to experience any significant charges, but there might be some minor charges we'll have to evaluate in our cash flow sheet.
Very good. Okay, thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Appreciate the partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Right, and then, you'll, coming in August then?
We're doing our best. We have our third-party consultant scrutinizing the paperwork with us right now. We think we'll have it ready for you for committee on August 4th at this point.
All right.
Where can we submit questions? Can we ask questions? Where can we submit them to? Yeah.
So you're welcome to email Mr. Allmeyer, and all those questions will be answered that way.
I would encourage you to do that. Guys, can you go into your O&M updates, please?
Thank you. This is a busy time of year for our office, with our capital projects. The roof replacement phase 4, I call it, at Huntley High School, is substantially complete. We walked it today, the consultant and the contractor's representative and I. They're just doing some minor final touch-ups over the next few days. If you haven't heard, during the process of replacing the roof, when they tear open the old membrane and put on the new type of membrane, and before the coatings got on, the weekend of 4th of July, 4th of July specifically, we had a 3-inch rainfall in 2 hours, and we had some water leak in the buildings. I have served notice to the contractor, and he takes ownership in being at fault for that water damage. We did notify our insurance company, but do not necessarily feel that we will have to call a claim with our insurance company because we are holding the money on the contractor. I told them that my vision is that we take a deductive change order for all of our costs, and he agrees his probably position is going to be he's going to either just absorb it or file a claim with his insurance company, so we won't have to get our insurance company involved. The condition of the East Gym floors in question just yet. The restoration contractor that we hired just pulled out today, dehumidifying the hardwood. They said there was cupping. It's topical water. It's not water from underneath, so it's not like a big wood floor that, if you've ever seen a wet wood floor like that, some of them can cause a big hump that can be several feet high over several distances. It's not that kind of a water problem. What it was is it's on the top of the wood, so each board might have a little cup to it. But they said there are many cases where they've been able to get that out. I've called the athletic director, and we're going to reschedule the walk together in a couple of business days here, when we both can be together to look at it and evaluate the condition of it. The contractor's been put on notice that if it's not satisfactory, he will also have to pay for us to stand the floor down in bare wood and redo the whole floor. He's aware of it. The bad news is, I talked to one of the most respected hardwood floor finish people who's done some of our sanding and wood floors too. They're out of Wisconsin, and he has told me that, which I already knew, this is not the time of year that you talk about doing a floor before school starts. This would be a winter break project, which winter break and athletic programs that would be in that gym, it's going to be awkward. But that's the next nearest time that could be done. I'm hoping that when we walk the floor, we don't see any cupping, and that we're not worried about it, but I don't know yet. Is there a question on that?
I mean, the humidity level at this time of the year isn't helping cause either.
We do have air conditioning in that space. We actually, our staff has a whole process routine we set up many, many years ago, where we run the boilers and the cooling in the summer months, and we can dehumidify the air very aggressively. It's nothing like it is outside. In addition, the contractor has built containments over the wet floor areas and was dehumidifying the wood directly under even more controlled environments. I'm not concerned with that. If I may go on, the next project is the paving project at Marlowe. I know that there are a lot of people, I always see this every year. They look at a parking lot like that, see the condition of it right now, and say, oh my gosh, so how's this going to get done when school starts? But we're this phase of filling in all the concrete infrastructure and then fine grading around it, and then it'll go real fast in the paving being 1 week it'll be done. I had a nice conversation with the contractor and talked about the timeline. We're confident it will be done. I will tell you there is one big twist on this project, and that is that as they were building the concrete work and moving some of the storm sewer systems to do these changes that will enhance our traffic safety on the property and our stacking ability, complement that a little bit, I think, in the property. But what we discovered is that the electric conduit that runs all that lighting out there, and that campus has a lot of light poles. It is built on standards that were in place at the time of construction for light level in the parking lot. Well, those conduits are all very shallow. And so the process we've used now for 8 years as the model of the long-term cost-effective way to replace pavement and limit our costs on the future life cycles of pavement was to use what we call full depth reclamation, where we stir cement, Portland cement and water into the existing gravel instead of hauling out the old contaminated gravel and bringing in new gravel. And it actually is much even stronger, creates a better foundation for that asphalt, and then in the future, you would only have to grind off the surface of the asphalt and replace it typically. Unfortunately, because of the shallow conduit, the cost to replace all that conduit and pull all that wire back into the heart of the building, into the lighting control system, is about $140,000. And I called the geotechnical engineer and said, by golly, that's a big expense. Could you please take a deep look at the soil borings that you've done on the property one more time and tell me if the existing gravel conditions are reasonable to support asphalt on its own standalone basis. He took about 36 hours and notified me that, yes, the only place that there's some poor conditions, subgrade conditions, is out front at the entrance, Scott and Halligus. And when we get to that phase of the project down the road, there will be no conduit out there, so we won't have that issue. But back here, he said it should work. So we told the contractor, proceed without the full depth reclamation. We'll expect a substantial savings. And our engineers at HR Green are working with them to finalize the numbers. There are some of the numbers in their proposal on unit cost basis and others that are not. But we'll get actually a substantial credit on the project by not doing that.
How shallow is the conduit?
When you include the thickness of the asphalt itself, it'll be about in the National Electric Code range of 18 inches below the surface. But without the asphalt being there, it's not. So, it's been there for since 2005 without a problem. So we'll have it back there again. If I may go on, there are some tallies on some change orders costs for the roofing project and the paving project, but they are far from complete. So we don't have a formal change order to bring the board at this time. I'm very happy to inform you that we do have a ComEd dashboard update from you. And I actually did get some insight just today from ComEd on what's going on, and we've not been able to download interval data from their site to give us information to be able to produce this analysis. And they told me they are in the process. They finally, my complaint finally got to someone that could tell me that they're actually changing to a different software company, and by September we should have access to this data again. So each month when the bill comes, I have to ask them for the data, and then over a couple of weeks they give it to me. But you'll see in the back there a summary of our savings to date. I find that we're a little shy. Our partner's been served notice to do some work on our hardware right now, and they have people out here quite regularly checking things out, commissioning things. So, and we'll see where the year ends up. The last thing I want to tell the board is the next meeting, August 4th, one of my two favorite reports to give the board is our 2022 capital projects deferred maintenance report. I've had a meeting with our leadership here to go over my vision of where things are in life cycle, and gladly heard some of their insight as to some other values the district needs to place on those investment dollars. And we're going to have that report for you on August 4th for some further discussion.
Virtually empty. We've replaced everything already, right?
Well, unfortunately, everything has a life cycle and it's shorter than mine and yours, Tony.
Page 100, you got page 1 of the new report.
That's it. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Nope.
Sorry, we'll all have the next board meeting. Look forward to that. All right. Item 17 is community relations and student outreach, our FOIA request. So this is somebody else?
Yes, me.
It was Leslie. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. So, as was mentioned, we have the FOIA request in the packet. If you have any questions on that, anyone? Otherwise, I just wanted to have Ms. Lemoyne go over some of the community events that are happening in the next week.
Yes, thank you. So I first just wanted to provide a quick update about our Readers Read Together Summer Reading Initiative. On Friday, which is tomorrow, we hit the end of our story with Chapter 30. We have engaged 12 community members and 18 staff members and teachers over the course of our chapter so far on social media with videos. We've had some amazing partners along the way. We've also engaged our families to go out into the community and find some golden tickets at different locations, supporting local businesses and getting involved that way. So we've gotten some positive feedback. I think people have really enjoyed this opportunity to engage over the summer, along with those literacy skills that we're always pushing as well. And that will conclude with a movie in the park night that the library is hosting in partnership with the Village of Huntley and the Park District. So tomorrow night, it'll start at 7 with some games and food, and then the movie will begin at 8:15. It's open to all families. Parasec Park is right next to the public library, so we hope to see a lot of our community members there and our families who have read along with us. And thank you, obviously, to our partners at the library for hosting that event. We are also hosting, in partnership with some larger community organizations, something called Enjoy Huntley Week, which is coming up. You have a schedule of events at your place with some things that are going on across the community from July 31st, Sunday, July 31st to August 6th. And the idea behind this was just to join together with some of our local organizations, library, park districts, the Huntley Police Department, Fire Protection District, the village, and ourselves, to just have a free week or a fun week of free and accessible activities for our community and families. Our contribution to this week is going to be a movie night at the Huntley High School Football Stadium. We're screening How to Train Your Dragon, family-friendly film. Everyone is welcome, community members and students alike, to come. Our stadium will open at 7:30, excuse me, on August 1st, that Monday, and we'll begin the film on the field at dusk. We're really looking forward to it. Should be a fun way to kind of kick off the August back-to-school push and engage in something fun with our families, as well as supporting our partners in the community and being a part of Enjoy Huntley Week, which I hope plenty of people will take advantage of. So we'll continue to push things out. Information is on our website and on social media, and we've been partnering with some of our promotional efforts, so we'll continue to do that this next week, and obviously save the date for August 1st. Thank you.
Further items?
No, nothing further.
Employees, move to item 18, President's Report. Lengthy here, again, to address some of the concerns I hear through public comments. Actually, the one thing else, it seems like the electric buses are a current recurring target theme of people thinking that we have our attention all on electric buses and not on education. I mean, the electric buses are a component, just element of our transportation department. For buses, potentially whatever more we might do in the future is only a small fraction of our fleet, while also being involved in natural gas buses and regular gas-fueled buses. So it's just a way to kind of hedge the overall energy situation. Nothing more, nothing less. We did spend a fair amount of time discussing because it's, it's an item on, the infrastructure is unfamiliar to each of us, and that's why there's a lot of questions. We're not our gig, obviously trying to understand it and understand the numbers behind it, because it has some complexity to it. Okay, and it requires some attention to make sure we kind of got our arms around. But by no means is the end-all be-all to what the focus of this district is. Focus of the district is education. That piece of it's a small piece of it, just like operations and maintenance is an element of it. There's all kinds of HR. I mean, there's all kinds of elements to this district. There's a lot of moving parts. That just happens to be one of them. So I just kind of address the overstatement of how electric buses seems to be like the end-all be-all in this district. So move on to our action items. Item 20.1 is the minutes. Does anybody have any questions related to the minutes presented? That, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Melendi, we have roll call.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Mr. Troy,
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano,
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi,
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino,
Yes.
Mr. Craddy.
Yes.
Yes, and item 20.2 is the policy committee. We have policy updates. Ms. Marino, do you have any comments on that?
So it looks like we have a policy second reading. Dr. Roll, is there anything significant?
Nothing further to speak of. As a reminder, most of this are legal updates and footnote updates. The one significant topic that gained some interest was changing the length of having the option of changing the length of public comment. We, again, have recommended to leave our policy as is at 3 minutes. But other than that, legal updates and footnotes.
Does anyone have any questions? All right. I will move that.
Okay,
Make a motion.
so it's up to you. You can make it.
Go ahead, go for it.
Not a problem. So I'll make a motion to approve policy updates as presented in the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Maiorino. Can we have a roll call?
Mr. Craddy,
Yes.
Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Mr. Gentry,
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi,
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano,
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino,
Yes.
Mr. Troy.
Yes.
20.3 Human Resources Committee. Mr. Gentry, please lead that.
First item up is 20.31 HR personnel. I believe we've all had a chance to review that. Anything to draw out in addition to that, Dr. Zier?
Nothing specific that hasn't been discussed in closed session, so I'll take any questions.
No questions. I will make a motion to accept the personnel report as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Maiorino,
Yes.
Mr. Craddy,
Yes.
Mr. Troy,
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi,
Yes.
Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Mr. Gentry,
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano.
Yes.
And then I'll look to combine the next two possibly if there's no objection to that, 20.3.2 and 20.33, both updated job descriptions. First one is accounting supervisor, second one is behavioral coach. Anything to highlight there, Dr. Zier?
There's nothing to highlight here, so they are actually, other than the accounting supervisor job description is a new title, so some additional roles to the person in that position, and the behavioral coach job description is something I worked on with the special education department with. That is a new role we're looking to fill possibly in the future.
Okay. Any questions from committee or others? If not, I will make a motion to accept the job descriptions as outlined in the agenda item 20.3.2 and 20.3.3.
Second.
Motion and a second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Quagliano,
Yes.
Mr. Craddy,
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi,
Yes.
Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Mr. Gentry,
Yes.
Mr. Troy,
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Brings us to item 20.3.4, substitute rates for the school year 2022 to 23. Dr. Zier.
And this is a recommendation to adjust our current substitute rates. As we've learned over the last couple of years, substitute rates have been very fluid as you go throughout the school year, and staying competitive with bordering school districts is one of our goals. So this reset to start the 22-23 school year would make us extremely competitive with our surrounding districts, not only allowing us to recruit new substitutes to the district, but more importantly, retain our current subs with the structure we have built here.
Any questions, comments? A very interesting environment given kind of the almost like open bid process that they have, so.
And yeah, I'll make the note competitive tonight. Who knows what surrounding districts will do next week?
Right.
And when you call your fellow HR colleagues, sometimes you get a surprise. So.
And just very critical services that are essentially on demand on short notice, and then to kind of keep the quality pool that we have, I think this is a good step. So.
Yeah, our subs kept us open during the peak of what we experienced in January, February, that's for sure.
Okay. With that, I will make a motion to approve the substitute rates for school year 2022-23 as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second, can I have a roll call?
Mrs. Maiorino.
Yes.
Mr. Craddy.
Yes.
Mr. Troy.
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi.
Yes.
Mr. Guerin.
Yes.
Mr. Gentry.
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano.
Yes.
Okay, push it back to, Finance Committee, Mr. Quagliano.
Okay, item 24.1 are payables. So we have our purchase orders, accounts payable, impress amounts, and disbursements presented. Does anybody have any questions related to those items? Okay, if not, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase orders, accounts payable, impress amount, and disbursements as presented in the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Guerin. Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Melendi.
Yes.
Mr. Gentry.
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino. Yes. Mr. Guerin.
Yes.
Mr. Troy.
Yes.
Mr. Craddy.
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano.
Yes. This is item 20.4.2, Mr. Altmeyer, the fiscal year 23 tentative budget draft.
Thank you very much. I always enjoy presenting the tentative budget because it is marching orders to all the departments that are sitting at this table, as well as the building, so that they know what their budget is moving forward. That being said, I will say right up front as to what I'm going to cover tonight is there will be changes, but at the building level, there shouldn't be changes, and at the departmental level, there might be minor changes, but hopefully we have a very solid budget in front of us. Over the next 3 meetings, right, we are asking to have the budget hearing on September 1st this year, and having that budget hearing on September 1st, knowing that the budget has to go on display for 30 days, well, we're going to put that budget on display starting August 1st, meaning probably on August 4th, we'll also present you another draft of the budget with modifications that I'll talk about a few of those when we get to the end of my presentation here of what we still need to do to finalize this budget. But what I do want to cover tonight, the last time we presented the first draft of the budget, that was in April. That was a while ago. And because we had to do a lot of things. We had that collective bargain, we had to do, raises for non-union staff, and we had a lot of other things that we were trying to get our arms around. We received, a community partnership grant. We received more ESSER funding. We received more ESSER IDEA funding. So we are working very hard to write those grants and make sure that we understand the revenue inflow and how we're going to utilize those dollars. And a lot of that is what we'll see in the next draft of the budget. But the reason I bring up April is, well, I'd love to make tonight's presentation extremely short, but I also want to note what's included in this current draft of the budget, because I think there's some revenue favorability line items that we just recently talked about when I gave the executive summary update that have really made it possible and gave us an opportunity this year to have a better budget, a more solid budget than frankly I was anticipating. So, and we'll talk about that. This budget includes, additional dollars for special education, specifically setting aside dollars from ESSER and some of the other grants that we're receiving for interrupted learning and the related Tier 1 through Tier 3 needs. This budget includes additional salary dollars for additional personnel to address additional needs throughout the system, right? It includes salary market adjustments needed to address, our hiring needs, our much-needed hiring needs in transportation, food services, paraprofessionals, and the support personnel in the buildings. That has been added. It provides $1 million for Chromebooks and laptops. We were able to keep that line item flat with prior years so that we can update our technology and improve our infrastructure. The budget also includes $2 million, same as prior year, right, for capital replacements, primarily a new roofing system at the high school, asphalt replacement, carpet, crack fill, seal coating, and all the other things that we need throughout the district to maintain our buildings. And it also includes $1 million for additional buses, whether they're propane or electric or diesel. We still have that line item in there. So this is a very solid budget that we're moving forward with. You have a very large packet in front of you. It's the same packet I provide you at every draft along the way, over 100 pages long. I'm going to first start, summarizing the memo that you have in front of you, but the operational budget, I'll summarize the operational budget. I'll note the material modifications from the last draft in April. I'll highlight just a few of the overall budget assumptions, and then I'll talk about some of the fluctuations and variances from the FY22 budget. And then lastly, we'll talk about future adjustments that we will see at the August COW, or hopefully most of those adjustments at the August COW. So at a very high level, if you look at page 3 on the budget memo, operating revenues are currently budgeted at $119.286 million, and operating expenses are budgeted at $119.07 million, resulting in a balanced operating budget of $214,252. And I want the board to understand that, you know, on the revenue side and the expenditure side, right, the majority of our revenues are property taxes and state revenues, evidence-based formula revenues. And those two combined, just property taxes and evidence-based formula, those are locked and loaded based on, we know what CPI is next year. We know we've already passed the 2021 levy. We know what new construction is. So we know what 90% of our revenues are going to be within this draft of the budget. So we feel really good, at least from a revenue standpoint, that we're there, although that final 10% could really drive fluctuations in various line items. On the expense side of the house, salaries and benefits, we also feel like we're locked and loaded because we know what salaries are. We have finalized our contracts. We have finalized our raises throughout the system, and we understand and we track very well what our health insurance benefits could and should and may be within this draft of the budget, and that's about 78% again. So again, at a very high level, we feel really good about this draft, this tentative draft of the budget. The material modifications, if you were to look at page 3 of your budget memo, you'll see a chart. And I started off with revenue adjustments, and we really only had 2 material revenue adjustments, and that's the corporate personal property replacement tax, right? As a result of the economy, as a result of receiving $1.3 million in FY22 just last year, we think with the current, right, I think we've all heard that CPI this past month was 9.1%. We do believe that for next year, we will see at least 75% of what we received in the current year. You know, part of me wanted to budget another $1.2 or $1.3 million, but we didn't feel it was too prudent. So in talking with the majority of other CFOs in the area, we're all settling on a 75% estimate based on the FY22 revenues, which would call for a $578,000 uptick in revenue for the district. In addition, based on the economy, right? Yeah, we have rising interest rates, but we have rising investment interest rates as well. And we're increasing earnings on investments by $150,000. And I'm probably in the next draft of the budget going to tweak that again because interest rates are looking very favorable for investment earnings. On the expense side, we increased HESPA salaries by $504,000. Admin non-union salaries increased by $142,000. And it's also important to note that these are the increases over and above what was already in the budget, right? And what was already in the budget was 3.5% and 4% respectively, non-union and HESPA. But these are the things we needed to do to get to where we needed to be within the market. Property and liability and workman's comp insurance increased by $175,000. The overall insurance did increase by $175,000, but what that increase represents is we did see a big uptick in cyber insurance. And we've all heard about cyber.
Yeah, so what does it cover? What is cyber insurance?
Cyber insurance covers, Chris, do you want to address that? But it essentially covers if we get hacked, and I'm not sure if you've heard the horror stories about Rockford and some other local districts that were hacked and their whole system was shut down for months. Not a single employee could use a computer, no email, no nothing. They had to go through and purchase all new computers and get their system back up and running. And while you're being hijacked, they ask you for a ransom.
Oh, right.
To give you a code, and
right.
It's a real thing.
Right. No, it's
That
a
was
thing.
as close as McHenry 15, and I believe they opted to pay the ransom.
Yeah.
And they were
And so what that insurance provides is, well, it provides the ransom dollars just in case you get hacked, but it also provides and makes sure the insurance companies make sure that we are doing our part in preventing cyber attacks. And so Chris and his team have been working hard on multi-factor authentication and a lot of other things, all right, to monitor and track our system to make sure that we don't have outside interference coming in.
In fact, on that very point, that's a hijack budget hearing.
Yeah, but it's
Cybersecurity is something that's near and dear to Dr. Brzezinski's heart. On May 20th, I believe, if you all remember, I was hounding you to get your Google authentication. That was what that was for. So the two-factor authentication is alive and well across District 158. This is another step protecting our investments and as well as keeping our students learning while they're with us so we can't be shut down. Or less likely to shut down.
So does the cyber insurance, if there were to be an event like that, you had to pay ransom, just say, does it cover that?
Yes.
Really?
I know, of course.
It would also cover remediation should we have an event, the remediation of that event as well.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right. Just curious what it actually covers for the massive increase.
And that increase, just on that cyber insurance alone, I believe was approximately $48,000 for our district. So the reason we have $175,000 here was in prior year, we had a lot of credits come through the budget that we received based on our prior year's experience, which reduced prior year's budget.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so now we have a larger gap, and that gap has become
Right. It went more to normalize, and that normalization is a
correct
significant increase over the.
And those are workers' comp type credits?
Yeah, workers' comp as well as property and liability experience claims of the pool, and they give money back.
Oh, not just
Of the
us.
pool, right,
But the workers' comp is more just us, right?
correct. But we're still part of the pool.
Right.
Yes.
Question. Would you happen to know what percentage-wise that cyber increase amounted to?
I can provide that at the next meeting, or call, I can send you an email.
40,000 of the.
No,
Yeah, and I
but
don't
it's
have,
figured differently.
I don't have those invoices in front of me, I have them right on my desk.
I didn't expect you to, but I was just curious if you might have
It's a big
known that.
increase, though.
Yeah, thanks.
I will tell you that. Other adjustments, fuel transportation, right? I think we all know that the price of fuel, whether it's propane or diesel, is going up. That's about a 20% uptick in fuel. And then we have new adoptions in curriculum. So they had a budget line item for new adoptions, math adoptions, of approximately $900,000. And utilizing other funding sources with some of the things we're doing and the needs, based on the needs of curriculum, we were able to carve back and reduce that line item by $505,000. So curriculum is still obtaining what they need to do what we need to do.
That's pretty substantial.
It is. But
You're okay.
we do have several other funding sources as well as based on their needs that these items for curriculum will be covered. Okay.
This isn't, out of curiosity, is this a kind of a one-time windfall, or is this, I mean?
Well, it really all depends, working with curriculum on an annual basis based on the type of new adoption. It's a new adoption.
Right, it's budget down to a certain amount, this amount. Is that where we expect it with some regular income to go up, or?
A new adoption could range from $500,000 to $1 million or more, depending upon what that new adoption is.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll have to monitor that year after year based on, whatever we're working on at the time.
Right, and that's where my question is, it's kind of like a 1 year, it drops for a year and then it's back up to a regular level. Yeah. Feel for that.
I think from an assumption standpoint, we've talked about CPI, levy year 2021 being finalized at 1.4%, with levy year 22 at 5% within this budget, and estimated new construction at $12.5 million a year. Last year, we were over $17 million in new construction, so that's also a fairly conservative estimate for fiscal year 23. And salaries now reflect all collective bargaining agreements. Health insurance is budgeted at a 5% increase and continues throughout the forecast years within the 5-year plan. And capital expenditures are remaining at $2 million for operations and maintenance, and also that number is carried through within the 5-year plan. Looking at line item by line item, well, not line item by line item, but revenue and expenditures, major tranches of revenues and expenditures. Revenues are increasing approximately $5.8 million or 5.1%. So in terms of fluctuation within that $5.8 million, right, we have local revenues, we have state revenues, and we have federal revenues. And let's start with the federal revenues. We talked about the National School Lunch, right, and that program expiring. So federal revenues are expected to decrease by approximately $1.9 million, again, driven by that National School Lunch revenue in the expiring program. Local revenues, on the flip side, are expected to increase by $6.4 million for several reasons. The biggest reason is that, well, local food service dollars from students and parents to feed lunch to our kids, that approximates $2.6 million. And so that has been added back to the local revenue pool. Corporate personal property replacement taxes are increasing by $578,000. And those are the two big pieces that are driving local revenues. Oh, and $3.1 million of property taxes as well are driving local revenues. State revenues are increasing by approximately $1.2 million. That is the EBF formula of $675,000 plus $97,000 increase to an EBF air calculation that we talked about several meetings ago. And we do have an increase in the transportation fund reimbursement estimate. We still need to finalize our transportation reimbursement, but that is increasing by approximately $473,000 currently, because last year's transportation reimbursement was so low because the prior year, well, we were remote for the majority of the year. And so the expenses within that fund were significantly lower. On the expenditure side, expenditures are increasing $4.6 million versus last year's budget, primarily driven by the increase in salaries and benefits. I won't go into detail. The detail is provided in your memo. Supplies and materials are budgeted to decrease $294,000, primarily driven by the decrease in the curriculum new adoptions that we talked about, and offset by an increase in fuel and electric accordingly. Capital outlay is currently budgeted to remain flat with the FY22 budget. That's good news. Other objects is currently budgeted to remain flat as well, and that line item, if you recall, covers private facility, room and board, and line items of that nature. As a result, the FY23 tentative budget reflects a current operating surplus of $214,252. The future adjustments, we talked about the transportation claim, and we're going to have a lot of adjustments, as I talked about, with ESSER and the community partnership grant, and we have another new after-school grant, which is great news, that we're going to have incoming revenue next year. But as a result, it's going to be fairly budget neutral because we're going to have offsetting expenses as well. So once those grants get finalized and written, and we obtain all the information we need to put it into the budget, we'll have offsetting revenue and expenditure items. But that will increase the revenue line item by several $1 million. How we're going to spend ESSER dollars, the community partnership grant, what's it called? AVIT? Yeah, I thought there was an acronym. Love acronyms, but an after-school grant as well. We have final special education estimates for private facility and room and board. We generally do that in August when we have a better handle on what those numbers look like. And then lastly, we have departmental allocations, which will happen. That'll be the last thing we do in August before we finalize that budget. And with that, administration recommends the board approve the FY23 tentative budget with an operating surplus of $214,000. Thank you for giving me the time.
Yes, we are so gracious.
Well, the good news is we've talked about a lot of these things now, so that at the next draft of the budget, I could focus just on the modifications.
No, right. Yeah, and I mean, this is probably you'll have but this is the major, with the ESPA contract settling up and some other things coming into focus. Expect the other ones to be more tweaks than.
Correct. Okay. Other than the grants
Right.
that we're going to be adding.
Yeah. Okay, any questions for Mr. Allmeyer? Nobody wants to go over that 100-page document?
I have one.
Details, sure.
Forgive me, if I missed it. Is there anything that's baked into some of the property development and growth that we're seeing with houses being added within the community?
Well, every year as part of the levy process and within the property tax assumptions, we're currently budgeting or forecasting new construction within the budget document at $12.5 million. For the last several years, we've been at $16 to $18 million of new construction. Now, that being said, right, We also have rising interest rates now, and we are seeing, home sales.
We're expecting a slowdown.
We're expecting a little bit of a slowdown. Now, historically, I've always just forecasted an estimated new construction at 12.5 million because it's a conservative number. I certainly don't want to overestimate new construction and bring additional dollars into the budget, spend those additional dollars, and then not be able to see those
Just curious,
additional dollars.
because as we keep driving by via Algonquin Road with some of the things that are going on there, stuff that's going a little bit further west, and certainly, although it's premature, is what could be happening across the street here on Square Barn Road, so.
Absolutely. When those developments really start to take off and we start having more communication with those developers and see what's happening, that's where we'll modify the future assumptions in the out years.
Fair enough, thank you.
And I know you all know this, but again, property taxes are a year in arrears.
It's a delay.
So it's, they might move in a year from now, but you're not seeing their property taxes for 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's,
But we will see their impact.
and that's why there's transition fees.
And impact fees, yep.
And I know your main focus on the current budget, you also have, you're projecting out into the 5 years, and I don't want to get into any of that. But again, as usual, going out becomes a little harder. You get these assumptions, whatever. It shows it obviously shows potentially deficits going in the out years, but that's happened. It happens in almost every year's budget draft going out 5 years. It's just because of the lack of clarity and just the flatline assumptions you have to kind of make with something like this.
Correct. And historically, not so much within this draft of the budget, but historically, we would outline, the all needs in of the district.
Right.
And we would have larger numbers for capital expenditures in the out years, larger numbers for certain departments because they know they want to do certain things.
Right.
And so the out years don't reflect any budget cuts. The out years don't reflect a reduction in headcount.
Right.
Right? So we feel right now that under the current trend, we will have declining enrollment. And as a result of declining enrollment, right, there is a point in time where we will have reduction in headcount and attrition and those things. And those dollars will come out of the budget. But within this document, we chose not to do that because we need to see what the current trend where it will take us. Okay, great point. Thank you.
Anything further in the budget? Okay. Item 20.4.3, the fiscal year 23 budget hearing. Setting the date, correct?
Correct, and I mentioned September 1st, and so we have the requirements and everything noted there. It's standard operating procedure here.
Okay.
We approve the budget.
We did we want to approve it? This is something that needs to be approved.
Yeah, it actually does, the tentative budget does.
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Thank you.
All right, then I'll make a motion to approve the tentative fiscal year 23 budget, tentative draft and 5-year plan in its second draft format. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Mr. Gentry. We have roll call on that.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Gregg?
Yes.
Okay. Now we'll go on to the budget hearing date. Any objections to that date? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 23 budget hearing date and time as presented in the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Troy, can we have roll call?
Can I, before we do roll call, I apologize. Because this is a committee of the whole meeting, it should be at 6 p.m., not 7 p.m. as noted in the memo. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So can we make
Yeah, so hang on. So what do you got? What is in the agenda?
Well,
In the memo,
in the
yeah.
memo,
Memo
it's
says
7
okay.
PM, but I'd like to change the memo to 6
Okay,
PM, and I
so let me-
can change that memo and get that online.
All right, then let me amend.
I just caught that, I'm sorry.
No problem. Let me amend the motion, to make a motion to, approve the fiscal year 23 budget hearings on September 1st at 6 o'clock. Is there a second? Mr. Troy seconds that. Now we get a roll call.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Passes, item 28.44 is the IDOT hazardous busing resolution. Every year resolution.
Correct, standard operating procedures. There's been no material changes to our infrastructure that would change anything here, so this is something that we have to file annually.
Correct. Bottom line is we provide busing to all of our students regardless of where they live. It's fine. Any questions?
I have a question, just a future question.
Sure.
If-
You're asking it now.
If and when that bus or the, light goes in at the, distracted me now. The light goes in, across the street, will we still qualify for that?
We will still qualify. That is a really good question. So the Illinois Department of Transportation actually analyzes all lights and crossing guards and things of that nature. And it's actually a point system. And based on that point system, you either qualify or you don't qualify for hazardous designation for a building or a campus or a district. Even if we install a light there, we don't have sidewalks. And so it's called like a multi-factor,
Okay.
kind of problem we have, right? So even though there's a light and it's helping a situation, if students wanted to walk, the fact of the matter is we don't have sidewalks and they'd have to walk on the road, and that alone,
Okay. Well,
creates.
right, I know it's not a point system, and that's what was my question, are we gonna lose points and still have enough?
We'll lose a few points, but it's not enough at all to disqualify us from hazardous designation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the IDOT hazardous busing resolution as presented. Second, Mr. Was it Craddy?
Yep.
Mr. Craddy, the roll call?
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino? Yes. Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Passes. Item 20.4.5 is the national school lunch rate increase. Mr. Altmeyer.
Thank you very much. This, back in the day, this had become standard operating procedure until we had a few years of the pandemic with the summer feeding program, for which really we didn't need to increase our lunch rate because all of our students were receiving a free lunch. Well, over that period of time, the net federal reimbursement rate is kind of ballooned a little bit to $3.31, and it's a requirement under this regulation that at least on an annual basis, we increase our lunch rate to get as close as by 10 cents, at least 10 cents, to get as close as we can to $3.31. So we, administration is recommending increasing a lunch rate from $3 to $3.10. Still short of the net federal reimbursement rate, but at this time we feel a 10-cent increase would be appropriate. We can always entertain a 15 or 20-cent increase. I think in a future year, we have already, there has been some communication that went out regarding this rate because we had to get out communication for the free and reduced application. So, being really forthright here. So even if the board wanted to increase it to $3.15 or $3.20, we can do that, but we'll have to re-communicate to our parents because of the communication that went out, the required communication as part of the free and reduced applications process.
Any questions related to this item?
There's no compliance risk with going only 10 cents, right?
No.
So, I mean, it's.
No. Most school districts are doing the 10 cents. Some are doing 15 or 20 cents to get as close as they can to the $3.31 because they need the additional revenues. But I don't think a 31-cent increase at this time is not appropriate.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
So, and I think it's best for our community and our parents to keep that at a 10% rate and or a 15-cent rate in the future. Right now, based on the regulation as written, a 10-cent increase per year is fine.
Yep. I'm with you. Everybody else?
I have a quick question. So is it that we can't exceed that amount, or that we have to make progress,
We have to make progress every year by at least 10 cents to get closer to that net reimbursement
This is the
rate.
minimum you can raise it. We don't have to raise it beyond it,
No.
So,
but if we were ahead of the game, let's say we were at 350, we would not have to do that kind of an increase.
We wouldn't be allowed to have a $3.50 type A lunch rate. The max we could have is up to the net reimbursement rate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
all right, I'll make a motion to approve the national school lunch rate increase from $3 to $3.10 for type A lunch. Second?
Second.
Mr. Gentry, he's the one who wants to raise everybody's lunch rate. Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Quagliano?
Yeah, that's it.
Mr. Franny?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Motion passes. I'll raise everybody's lunch rate. Who's Mr. Olmeyer? So,
Sorry.
all right. Item 20, make sure I get this right here. 1, not 2. Yeah. Item 20.5.1 is the, Mr. Troy, this is the Verity.
Yep, okay, I won't hesitate on this. Mr. Rankowski, can you fill us in, please?
This is a service contract we have for our HVAC controls. It's been in place since we completed our building automation controls project in 2010. Mr. Altmaier charged me when he saw inflation going up to try to get all our service contractors to come in and commit early on with a contract extension with some rates that maybe we could keep things down. This is the last one, I believe, to come in, and my goals is what to bring you. They provide us value by providing anytime our technicians who are managing our HVAC systems see problems that they can't resolve on the control system, they're able to post electronic work orders and call technicians at Verity who, because of our web-based system, can dial in and help us and guide us, and in some cases train our personnel a little better to what we're doing too. So I would hope the board could see fit to continue this contract.
Any questions about this particular service agreement? I'm not hearing any questions. I'll make a motion to accept the service agreement as presented in the agenda with Verity.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Mr. Gentry. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Mr. Franny?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Next one on the agenda is item 20.5.3, the amendment number 7 to ABM's custodial service contract. Mr. Rincassi, I'll turn it over to you again.
At this point in time, our custodial contractor is still challenged with having people applying for positions in the company. And the rates that are offered are based on what our outline of contract amendment 6 was, which does keep us ahead of minimum wage. Do not seem to be adequate to attract workers. And our goal is to have them have a full staff and be able to have a job that they can have a reasonable income. And as a reflection of other contracts that the district has had for support staff employees, we had a long discussion with them. The outcome of this was an offer where they agreed, as Eric says, they have skin in the game of trying to keep this service contract functional. So they're offering to split the cost of a raise of $1.42 an hour to get the minimum, or the lowest wage for the night housekeeper to $15 an hour. And then the other workers in the up the ladder through the supervisory management infrastructure would also get the same exact dollar amount raise. In addition, ABM is offering one extra holiday, a paid holiday for the workers. And they have actually already instituted their portion of the added expense here to try to preserve what they do have for employees and try to reattract employees. There will be a little less pain than prior years because at this point in time we're reverting back from the pandemic mode to regular performance standards. But they still have, I think, 4 vacancies in their team presently. You'll see attached an amendment. They wanted to talk to us about a dollar amount for the last year of the present agreement. We did an extension on that contract. We're presently in year 4, starting year 5, I apologize. And back at the end of year 3, which was the base contract, we did agree to an extension. But they wanted an extension, an hourly rate that was higher than what the district was comfortable with. And so what we agreed to do is to basically just sunset, this amendment would sunset the contract at the end of this contract year. And so like I told them, in like December, January, we need to start talking about where the economy is if we want to consider a renewal for the following year. This will be the first time since the inception of this contract, with the contract that I started with them through your help, that it expires at the end of the school year instead of in the middle of the summer. And that's why you see May 31st listed. That gives us an opportunity, if we do end up at some point, we will have a new contractor possibly, that they get to start out at the beginning of the summer and do the entire summer clean and get grounded before the school year starts very well. So that's why it says that date of May 31st. This agreement then would offer that to be just a one-year deal, and we'll come back to you and talk to you some more about where we want to go for the following year, in the spring.
Any questions from the board? Thank you for that clarification. With that, hearing no questions, I will make a motion to accept and approve amendment number 7 to the custodial services contract with ABM as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Mr. Quagliano. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Passes 20-6. Mr. Garrett, you finally get your shot here.
Thank you. 20-6.1, the contract with Care Solis. Okay, excuse me here. Pinch hitting, not bad.
So this evening, administration is seeking approval to enter into a 3-year agreement with Care Solis, and Mrs. Romero is going to come present and be able to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, good evening. All right, so we are seeking approval to enter into a 3-year agreement with Care Solis. Through partnership with Care Solis, our goal is to connect students, our school staff, and their families to quality mental health supports and substance use treatment through community-based care. As a student-centered district, we're committed to the wellness of those we serve, and we recognize that access to mental health care is vitally important to a healthy community. Care Solis provides an additional layer of support, very much aligned with our MTSS framework that extends beyond the walls of our school, serving as a wraparound support for those who need it. Care Solis is an organization determined to calm the chaos of mental health care coordination. Through Care Solis, a care concierge team is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The focus of the care concierge team is to assist with removing barriers individuals face when attempting to access mental health care resources, including repeated lengthy phone calls, scheduling conflicts, insurance issues, and long wait times, taking this off the individual's or family's plate. A care companion is dedicated to students and families, helping them navigate the mental health care system by finding qualified providers in the area, scheduling appointments,
facilitating a warm handoff, and following up after appointments. The Care Concierge team offers multilingual services in over 200 languages and is committed to matching culturally appropriate and gender-appropriate resources and providers to students and families. CareSolace provides a web-based confidential care navigation system, which houses the largest vetted bank of mental health resources available. It is able to match students, staff, and their families to appropriate local mental health resources that are tailored to their needs, including telehealth services and providers who work with those who are uninsured. Currently, CareSolace serves about 3 million students, 150,000 school staff members, and 12 million parents and family members across the United States. In District 158, our intention is to make this service available to our students and staff and their families for free. Some ways that District 158 students, parents, and guardians can access CareSolace. We have a couple of different methods that can become available. They're able to call at any time to speak someone directly with the CareSolace team. They're able to video chat by visiting through a direct access link that would be made available to Huntley students through the district webpage. They can email CareSolace with contact information and indicate a preferred language and a good time to reach out. And they can contact the school or the school counselor or a healthcare provider at the school who's able to help connect them as well. So there's a couple different methods that can be taken. CareSolace provides support with launching this service, so they do provide some PD for staff to help get it initiated, and then they're there to help along the way. But there is a complete confidentiality component to this, so families do not need to worry about their information being shared. And in terms of data, the district is able to receive through the leadership team, they're able to receive real-time data in terms of access and use of CareSolace. Yeah, I will go ahead and take any questions.
Before any questions come on, I want to just add a brief commentary here. I don't know, some of you are pretty connected to the mental health support world in our county. If you go back with me 5 or 6 or 7 years and remember how scarce that really was, and how challenging it was to find those resources. And in that window of time, not that this is connected to that, but the McHenry County Mental Health Board has come a long way and are pushing resources to us constantly. They did a tremendous job. So much so that the state stole our mental health board director. Good for him downstate, but Leo Rizzo's there now doing good work as well. But my point being, what CareSolace is doing, our social workers have been doing during that window of time. When someone didn't know where to access mental health resources, that was a phone call to our social workers. So think about that weight coming off of their plate and a service that they can just give to families. Not only as a benefit of more time and mental focus directly on students, but staying in touch with how to direct them. I don't know where to begin in helping my child. Who do I call? How do I know if it's a good fit for me? And then, Ms. Romero, if you could go one step further, one of the things you mentioned was how do the CareSolace with students and their families? How do families access not just the students? This is the entire family, correct?
Correct.
Can you talk just a little bit about that so everybody really understands the enormity of what this is going to provide?
Yes, so part of their mission is to ensure when we think of a student and the whole child, we recognize that there is a large impact on that student based on the family dynamics and needs as well. So CareSolace doesn't only provide services to students, but they're also accessible for the family. So parents, guardians, siblings in the household, anybody that's identified as an immediate family member. So we would categorize that as anyone living in that student's home. And so that can be access services in terms of family counseling services, direct psychiatry and psychology services can all be a part of this, not just for our students, but also for our staff members and also for our students and staff members' families.
The biggest question I would have is, how are we going to promote it and make people aware of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So they do partner with us on that piece. So they do provide something called like a backpack mailer. So they do provide some tangibles that we can send home with students, but they also help us promote through our district website. So we would certainly partner with Ms. Lemoyne in making sure that that information is shared out there to our families. And there's a direct link it would be on our district webpage. And we possibly look at each individual school page as well, where they can just click on the CareSolace link, and there's an explanation of exactly what CareSolace is, what it provides, and then allows them to go directly to that site if they do not want to work through the school to make that connection and want to do that independently, and they're able to book an appointment that way.
Any other questions on the board?
I do. So I'm looking through this contract and, you know, we're talking $87,000 for 3 years. And I see a lot of disclaimers in here from CareSolace, taking a lot of liability off of themselves. I see that they're wanting to maintain a website with our name. They state on here multiple times that they're not mental health treatment providers and they're offering customer service. And I'm wondering why we are not directing families to McHelp, McHenry County's mental health services. And I mean, I see everything is kind of interlinked. We've got the McHenry County Health Board, the McHelp app. Who are these providers that CareSolace is connecting the community with? And how are they able to get families in faster than families can get in themselves?
So certainly we do absolutely still promote the McHelp and look at those community resources. That's much of the work that our student services team members have been doing over many, many years, and we still make that a way to refer families. However, this is, they are not healthcare, mental health care providers themselves. They're kind of that like conduit.
Okay.
So what they do is they reach out to mental health care providers in the area. They have, based on where we're located, then they expand their search to a certain radius. And then they look at making those partnerships, coming into agreements at no charge to those providers, but then based on the providers in the area, based on insurance and based on availability, then they're able to kind of tailor based on what the family or the student needs, who they should make those recommendations to. It's not necessarily that they're always able to get in so much faster. It's just that we're taking that work off of the family's plate, and that's what typically takes the time, is making the phone calls, scheduling the appointments, having to wait for callbacks, whereas their ability to be persistent and work through all of those insurance components and pieces is completely taking that off of the plate of the families. So their timeline, they typically say, is days versus weeks or months to get into appointments.
I think I might actually, if I could, I might add to that, that my impression of this is also having the network of providers that are there, that you can determine, you know, social work versus psychologists versus psychiatrists, family focus versus individual versus child specialty. When that, I assume that's being done via just a Google search, and you're navigating that as you're on your own. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of viewing it as the one-stop shop and kind of helping like almost filter out what the needs are to narrow the search to make it more of an accurate first-time click. I've got the right person that has the best chance of fitting my need.
Right, and I know I had mentioned earlier, they really do have a very comprehensive bank already built of mental health resources across the country, including in this area. So it's not that we're starting from scratch necessarily. They already have built partnerships across the country. So that telehealth piece may not need to be completely local, whereas in-person piece would need to be. And so they've already begun making connections across the country. And so this would be more looking at how do they, once we have that partnership in place, they would be looking at how can they continue to fine tune and continue to branch out and build more partnerships locally. But yes, it was also the specialty, as Dr. Rowe mentioned.
Because if you go on their website, you can't see their list of providers at all. And they state right on here, you know, they're not a treatment provider, and they say they will not be liable for the quality of care provided by treatment providers. And when I'm thinking about a family looking for someone for their child, they're going to want to, like, see the style of the therapist, look at some, you know, reviews, just vetting, licensing, education, things like that. And so we've got CareSolace kind of putting somebody in touch with somebody. Is this just like for a crisis intervention? And then we talk about confidentiality, but when we look at the addendum to this contract, it talks about how some of this information could be FOIA'd. Well, how does that keep our students
information private and confidential if some of the records could be FOIA'd. I don't feel good about this, but that's my opinion. I agree with this contract.
Well, the student records and the FOIA-ability of it is going to remain the same in terms of what we will and will not and can and cannot give them. So they have access to the number of referrals that are made, but they aren't going to be able to get down to who was referred and what they were referred for.
So does anyone need a referral to access this?
So the
For clarification, when I say referral, I mean, where did someone use CareSolas to contact the provider? That's what I was referring to when I say referral.
Just to add that for clarity, FOIA has a specific exemption that prohibits us from disclosing private student information or individually identifiable student information. Even things that are subject to FOIA, there's still redactions that are made or things that are exempted if in fact they would give a student's information. That's not something that the law provides.
And does this apply then even after a student has graduated and left, they're still protected? And that information being redacted, personal information that covers them?
Private information not related to district business is, yes, that's redacted.
Okay, all right. And then we were talking about the referral. Do they need a specific referral?
So the referral process doesn't have to come through the school itself. It could come through a provider at school, so it could be a counselor, a social worker, and then they directly, they do what's called a warm handoff. So they may reach out to the family then has a direct contact, whether it's a parent or a guardian, and then the CareSolis works directly with that parent or guardian. The family can refer themselves through that process too, so through that link that would be on the district website, or they could even go directly to the CareSolis website and not even go through the district website to access that, and they could choose to book an appointment. It doesn't necessarily require all of that individual information either. It could be an email address and just indicating this is a good time to reach me and here's a good number, but they're not required to enter birth date, phone number, name, and all of that information.
Okay, so we're not reliant on a staff member making that determination? Okay.
Nope, families can absolutely do this on their own, which is absolutely one of the benefits of this, is some families are not comfortable going through the school, or a family may have some things going on at home that the school may not even be aware of, and they're able to do this independently of the school.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, thank you. It's a long meeting. In my experience in the mental health community, I know that it's common to have over a 6-month wait to get in for an initial consult. So I think this is good in theory. I'm not really confident that our local community is going to, our community members are going to be able to get into anywhere around here for 6 months plus. And when you're in crisis, that doesn't work. So I'm really curious about how this provider is going to be able to, when there's people here that have local connections that can't get people in, it's going to be a challenge for them. That's just the way it's going to be, and I don't see a way around that. So I'm concerned about that. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't we contracted with some healthcare providers, mental health care providers right now, the district is? Do we have some mental health? There's a list. So if you're in crisis, your child is in crisis, you're given a list, and there's a list. I would assume that those are the first people that this company is going to contact, or how does that interact with this?
Sure. So there is a referral list that exists, not necessarily that we're contracted with those community providers, but certainly ones that are in the area that we've worked with in the past. And so that's definitely provided to families upon need or upon request. And yes, many of them would likely be people that CareSolis would partner with, and they would also extend beyond that particular group. So they're looking to build partnerships that may not be a part of that, or may not be people that we've recommended or handed out as references in the past. But they're also looking to expand their search beyond even our very local parameters. So they may be looking a little bit on the outskirts as well, and that telehealth piece is also a little bit different. So they're really the ones responsible for locating, finding those qualified individuals. So that's not on the school and the district to be able to identify them, but they're able to share with us who some partners may be.
To your point, Ms. Melindy, I actually would wonder, crisis level versus general family, we need to talk to somebody, or I think my kid needs to see someone to have that conversation. And the crisis for an outpatient or an inpatient bed, you're right. But for an initial conversation, I don't believe it is a 6-month window.
It is.
I think there are.
It is a 6-month window. I'm telling you right now it is. I am confident that there's a 6-month wait. So whether you're crisis, if you're in crisis, you're going to an outpatient. But just to say, listen, we're having some issues and, you know, my child really could use somebody to talk to. It is, I'm not saying you can't find somebody under 6 months. I'm saying it's, in my own experience, and this is my own experience, in the community, it's common for about a 6-month. And good luck to them if they can get somebody in, that's even the better, more the better. My other comment is, and this is my last one, I would really encourage you to make our parents certain that this is anonymous and that the school is not keeping any type of list or anything that's going to give out their private information, because I would think that that's a concern for them.
Sure, and the goal is to be completely confidential and not to share any student information in any way, shape, or form. And that's why those other independent options exist outside of the school for families to refer themselves. But it is truly meant to be completely confidential.
I think it's going to be good if people feel comfortable using it. Mm-hmm. They have to be able to be comfortable using it, and I think it's effective if it's being used.
Yep, and I think that data dashboard, so that piece where they're giving reports to the district will help us know how often it's being used. It gives us no personal information, but it does indicate number of referrals, which referrals, again, can come from the family, could come from the individual themselves, could come from the counselor or school provider. And so we'll be able to at least see some of those numbers along the way.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So are we aware of other districts in the area who utilize this service and what their experience has been?
Yeah, so we are aware that Belvedere, Valley View, we also I have a couple listed actually for myself. Forest Park, West Chicago are a couple in the general area, and I know that they had, the last that we spoke with a CareSolve representative, there was another district relatively nearby, I believe Barrington was looking to partner as well. But the other ones are confirmed and correct.
And they felt their experience is pretty good so far?
Yes.
I don't know how long they've been contracted.
Correct. Some have been for a couple of years, some are more recent, and you can visit their district websites and see kind of the little explanation of what Care Solace is and the link through their websites to be able to connect.
How did we become aware of this? Did research, or did somebody call us about it, or was it just networking with another district?
The initial was actually, I believe, there was a little bit of networking with other districts, but also I believe we had been looking into what exists out there that's kind of that part that we could build that partnership with, and came across a couple of different options, and Care Solace was the one that stood out above all the rest.
Any other questions? Any objection to moving it forward to a vote? Yeah, I would seek approval as presented, and we'll get a roll call.
Mr. Gentry?
Wait a second, need a second. Gotta get a second.
No motion.
Well, I'll make a more, I'll make a more formal motion. I'll make a motion to approve, the contracts with Care Solace as presented in the agenda. Second. Here. Now we can.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Cranny?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Absolutely no.
Motion passes 6-1. Okay, with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting at 9:29. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Moore. Melendi. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.